Okay, I have a problem with Thorfinn's "I have no enemies" quote. Well, not really, just a slight critique. Vinland Saga is such a great story, and I think that beyond just everyone throwing hands, I think it's one of those anime that's supposed to make you think deeper about the life that we live. Now, I want to point out that the "I have no enemies" quote, it's said after Thorfinn endures a brutal beating in order to prove that he used to serve King Canute in order to ask him to retreat from Ketil's farm. Thorfinn, having recently went through an awakening that violence and murder and killing is only something that causes despair and chaos, he vows to not pick up the sword ever again unless it's to protect people from getting hurt. And then, after getting beat up, he says, "I have no enemies." When Thorfinn said this, the whole internet went crazy, and there are videos up that do a breakdown of what Thorfinn meant. But I want to do a different video in a different perspective. But before I do, make sure you go ahead and click that like button and subscribe button. Thanks. I think that everyone is right to interpret art however they see fit, but I want to take a different approach. The videos that I have watched of people talking about what it meant to them, and some have said having no enemies pretty much means that you're not allowing anything to get to you, not having something consume you so much to the effect that you're willing to, take it there, that you won't let it affect you so much that you're going to make an enemy out of another person. And I think this is great. I mean, this life will do you dirty and people will treat you wrong and you will feel like you need to get them back or do them worse. I mean, Thorfinn's whole life was consumed by the reality of Askeladd killing his dad, and he built his whole life around one goal: restoring honor back to his father. But if I'm being honest, as complex and raw as humans are, we actually tend to make enemies out of the pettiest things. To act like that isn't the case is just playing with reality. We'll literally keep referring to TikTok because even though I'm on there, I kind of hate it. It is what it is. But people make enemies out of anyone for the slightest detail, especially in the anime community. Like, sometimes, y'all need to relax. It's okay. It's okay for people to have different opinions. Thorfinn came face to face to that reality when Askeladd appears in his dream, basically telling him to fight for something better than the endless fighting going on in the world, which starts Thorfinn's rebirth. Now, I want to take a quick pause to just throw a shot at Attack on Titan fans that stand Eren destroying the world, probably for a different video. But if you are a fan of this Vinland Saga, assuming you are, why is it when people say Eren is wrong about destroying the world and getting revenge, y'all type paragraphs in the comments defending him? But if we're being honest, in different worlds, Thorfinn had the same circumstances. But yet, in season 2, Thorfinn, instead of staying bitter and hopeless, decided in a way to forgive Askeladd and seek to be a man of peace, not picking up the sword ever again, unless he desperately has to. If I'm being honest, Attack on Titan fans should hate Vinland Saga. Thorfinn didn't get his payback at all, and when y'all see him say "I had no enemies," y'all take it on a meme trend, which is just very, very ironic. I know this is just anime, and I know we as anime fans can be complex and hypocritical sometimes, but I just need to put that in there. Why? But I think this phrase "I have no enemies" is Thorfinn's slight variation of Jesus' words in Matthew 5:43-48. He overhears Snake and the old master as Snake is reading the Bible to him, and he reads Jesus' words. After Thorfinn's awakening, he realizes what his dad meant when he says that he has no enemies. Thorfinn's dad understood war and killing, but the reality is that it leads to nothing. That the person that you are killing is another human being, a father, a mother, a sister, a brother. And guaranteed, especially in those times, you will make enemies. You will have people that despise you and hate you because you've given them a reason to. I mean, if you're a Viking killing innocent people, why wouldn't you create enemies from that? If an environment that values strength and bloodshed hears the words of Jesus, most likely they will turn their noses up at the thought of loving an enemy and praying for those who want to do you harm, seeking their well-being, especially because for a warrior, survival is all that matters. And if you don't survive, the hope is that you die and go to Valhalla, which is why I think most people don't understand Thorfinn's quote. That quote isn't necessarily a mantra to live by, as if you can be buddy-buddy with everyone in the world, or you can just say you have no enemies mentally and all your enemies disappear. If we're being honest, it doesn't matter how nice and loving and kind you are. Some people will still not like you, and honestly, you won't like them. They might not be considered enemies to the extent of you wanting to kill them or them kill you, but they may not be the people that have your best interests at heart, and you probably won't either. This is why Thorfinn's words, and even more so, Jesus' words, are so impactful on the world. It flips what society thinks on its head is normal. Loving your enemies and praying for people that want to do you harm is out of the ordinary. Going out of your way to care for someone who does not like you goes beyond caring for people who care about you. And you know what's crazy? Most of us don't even know this, is that we take this as a like, hey, yeah, man, all of us should just love one another and the world would be a better place. Cool. Most people don't actually realize how much love actually costs. It's a sacrifice. Like, actually truly loving someone is going to cost you something. Like, sometimes when people say that if we love each other, the world would be a better place, and I agree, but putting it in practice, we have trouble loving the person next to us that might have different opinions than us. Politically, sexually, in religion, love is sacrificial. Loving your enemies takes something different. It takes something supernatural. Like, how far are you willing to go to be like Thorfinn, to take a beating so that you honor your vow of not tearing down the person that's trying to hurt you? Like, how much are you willing to put up with someone who has different views than you? Are you going to write them off or not talk to them and be in a little like in crowd? Or are you going to love someone to the point where you're willing to go out of your comfort zone to hear other people's opinions and not necessarily count them as an enemy, but love them even if you have different perspectives? Throughout Christian history, Christians have been persecuted for believing in Christ. And instead of them retaliating, they love their enemies to death. Talking to my Christians here, how would your circles be different if instead of canceling or destroying people that are opposed to the Christian faith or against your political beliefs, we actually go the extra mile that we love them? Not agreeing with what they do, that is sin, but loving them despite what they do or believe. You'll love them better than the actual peers in their circles. How much more would people be motivated to follow Jesus if we love them better than their peoples that are telling them what they want to hear in their end circle? Jesus elevates the standard. That's why he says in verse 48, you therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Most people, they see the standard and you say, oh, like I have to do all of these things. Like, it's impossible. No one can be perfect. But the fact of the matter is, Jesus is saying you are not perfect. The reason that you can't love your neighbor as you should is because every human on this earth is a flawed human being, and all of us fall short before God's standard of perfection. And the reality is that on this side of eternity with flawed hearts, we will always have enemies, and it's hard to love them. I think Thorfinn's quote is just slightly off. But can I tell you something? Like a secret, but not a secret to dealing with your enemies, it's believing in Jesus, trusting in what he has done for humanity. See, Jesus comes on the scene perfect, God in the flesh, and actually demonstrated what true humanity is. How we should love the people around us, the people in our community, but not only that, how we should deal with the people that want to do us harm. I think a lot of people that aren't necessarily Christians like to take Jesus and put them as this figurehead of love without actually realizing how Jesus actually loved the people around him and even his enemies. He displayed his love for his enemies in his fullness when he went to the cross for his enemies. Jesus healed Roman guards who were opposed to the Jewish people, his people, healing their sons, caring for the sick, caring for the tax collectors that were getting rich off their own people. He cared for them too. He displayed so much love for his enemies that he ended up dying for them. Yes, Jesus, this loving God, died for the people that wanted to cause him harm, who were considered his enemies. Romans 5:8 says this, for if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son, much more, now that we are reconciled, shall we be saved by his life? Fans of Vinland Saga have been so greatly impacted by Thorfinn's words, I have no enemies. And for 2,000 years, people's lives have been changed by Jesus' words, and most importantly, his life, death, and resurrection, to bring his enemies to become sons and daughters. I don't think what Thorfinn said it was bad. I actually think it's from the Christian influence from the old master reading the Bible. But for you, in your life, I have a question. How would your life look different if instead of you saying you have no enemies, you love your enemies like Jesus did? like actually loving them to their benefit. That's what Jesus actually did, loving us so much to die for us so that we could be right with a holy and just God. I think if we were to actually believe this, our world probably would look really different because we would be motivated by love for God and love for our neighbors. So you actually do have enemies, but love them like Jesus would.